Now, the second principle of happiness is of the poor goes one step further and prompt us to consider what is the most enjoyable thing in life. Well, we think about this question because in our mind we know that, substituting material poverty with personal pride is still a secondary solution, we feel. And we call it secondary because essentially we're still comparing, right? We're comparing immaterial riches with material poverty. And we make such a comparison because we still feel that we are poor in something. Therefore, our intention is not pure. Well, sure, it is great that we shift our attention away from the struggle for money and focus on the development of the virtue. But if we do that simply because we have no money and we're under obligation to generate some kind of social standing from an alternative source, then we're holding our honor of virtue for a purpose. And this way we can never be relaxed, really relaxed, because we're still comparing. So, what is the highest principle for the consumption of the poor? Well, the highest principle for the consumption of the poor is the pleasure in seeking the truth, which itself shouldn't be affected by the economic condition. So this means that pleasure in truth is the most enjoyable thing, and there is nothing else able to attract the mind. Now, like many sages, Confucius spent his whole life teaching and seeking the highest attainment of mankind. He said, "With coarse rice to eat, with water to drink, and my bended arm for a pillow, I have still joy in the midst of these things. Riches and honors acquired by unrighteousness are to me as floating cloud." So this way, we have no concern whatsoever when we consume anything. So at this level, we don't even have to compare our mental richness with the material richness of other people. Confucius used his student, Yan Hui, as an example of happiness for the poor. He said, "Admirable indeed was the virtue of Hui. With a single bamboo dish of rice, a single gourd dish of drink, and living in his mean narrow lane, while others could not have endured the distress, he did not allow his joy to be affected by it. Admirable indeed was the virtue of Hui." We saw this quote before, but we should understand that people like Confucius and Yan Hui, they don't regard, the low condition as their pleasure. No. Let me say that again. They don't regard the low condition as their pleasure. It is just that these things don't have any influence upon their pleasure. They enjoy their own pleasure. And likewise, ancient sages' teaching doesn't forbid the people to make a living. They simply teach us not to let our happiness depend upon material wealth. In fact, it is our duty to work and provide nourishment for the family, the best we can. Although we set the topic under the title of the happiness for the poor, you can see that this applies to everyone. Rich or poor, everybody needs to learn to separate happiness from material consumption. Economically speaking, consumption not only drives wealth creation in the economy, but also stimulates investment and technological advancement. But one thing that it does not do with any degree of consistency is realizing happiness. So a causal inference between consumption and happiness is nothing more than a delusion. But despite of this delusion, or delusional relation, Confucius was still very anxious to provide nourishment for the common people, as we have already seen. And we can see that from his teaching to the leader and the ruling class. But at the same time, Confucius gives the highest ethical standard to inspire people to obtain true happiness. So I think in a broader sense, if you like, happiness should not depend on any external circumstance. This not only includes material, social position, but also how we are treated by other people. I think at to this point, I would like to quote a famous saying by the First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. She said, "No one can make you feel inferior without your consent." Also, Gandhi said, "They cannot take away our self-respect if we do not give it to them." I think these great quotes reflect our lecture today very well. And they remind us that we have the key. We do. We have the key to happiness. We control our own emotion. It is we who decide if we want to be happy or not. Not social position, not some kind of exclusive membership, and certainly not money. So, having established the principle of happiness, in the next lecture, we'll discuss Confucius' teaching on the general guideline of consumption itself. Thank you.